He is a director of some of our all-time great, famous, fun movies. That's why he's part of our poll question. LBJ in theaters near you, released last Friday, starring Woody Harrelson as the President of the United States shortly after the Kennedy assassination and prior to the passage of the landmark Civil Rights Act in 1964. The director of that film, Rob Reiner. Good to see you,
Rich,
sir.
thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming here.
My pleasure.
Before we get into the movies, let's talk some sports.
Okay, I love sports.
Because I know you're a Dodger fan, right?
I'm a big Dodger fan.
What'd you think of that World Series?
Well, I thought it was a great World Series up until the last game. And I was one of those, as the game started, I was, why is Yu Darvish starting this game? I mean, he had been so bad in the game before. I understand, you know, you give a guy another chance. He's been in tough situations before. But if Clayton Kershaw was willing to pitch 4 or 5 innings, which is what he did ultimately,
right,
you have to start him then.
So
you have to start your best pitcher because they're never thinking that Yu Darvish is going to give you more than 4 or 5 innings. It's not like that Dave Roberts is thinking, I'm going to get 7 innings out of Yu Darvish. So if you're thinking, I'm going to get 4 or 5, and you know you've got Kenley Jansen for at least 2, Morrow for 1, I'm starting my best pitcher.
See, the moment that I thought that, because it would have been tough to basically say, okay, our Game 5 starter's now our Game 7 starter. Certainly after what Kershaw looked like in Game 5 with a 4 and a 3-run lead. I mean,
know.
So that's an interesting, you know, supposition, certainly based on what we saw, what he looked like in those 4 innings.
I understand, but, you know, sitting there right there at Dodger Stadium was Sandy Koufax, who did pitch the 7th game after having pitched the 5th game.
Yeah.
And there used to be a time when you could have, all you needed was 2 pitchers. 2 starting pitchers, because you can have 1, 2, day off, and then start them again, you know, and win the 4 games. And I don't, you know, I understand fresh arms, you know, you only go 100 pitches and all this stuff. But I asked Raleigh Fingers about this one time, and I said, what is the deal about 100 pitches? And he said, I don't understand it, because they throw 50 pitches in the bullpen before they're getting into the game to warm up. They're throwing 8 pitches between innings, and then the 100 pitches. So you're already, you know, if you're going to go 7 innings, you're already throwing 200 pitches. What's the difference if you throw 200 or 220 pitches? I mean, it's just doesn't make sense to me.
I'm with you too, Rob, because, you know, the analytics world that we live in right now, that it seems that so many managers are into. The perfect example is, and again, Dave Roberts, manager of the year last year.
No, he's great. Now, listen, he did a great job.
And I think he's going to be this year in the National League also.
He did a great job.
The finalists for the National League Manager of the Year are managers of the 2 teams that finished behind the Dodgers this year in the NL West.
Right.
So I wanted to put that caveat out there for both of us before we continue
I
guessing.
Dave Roberts has been great all year, and there should be a balance between sabermetrics and gut.
Yes.
You've got to find that, you know, in between thing. And for the most part, I think Dave Roberts does do that.
Because in Game 2, they took Rich Hill out of Game 2
after 4 innings.
Because when he goes through the lineup for a 3rd time, his numbers based on the
go
analytics,
down.
right? So they might as well take him out right there. But to me, that just drives me nuts.
Because have they done the analytics on a guy in a World Series game after 4 innings, because they don't have Rich Hill for that, and there's a little bit of an extra thing that's pumping through your system, and that's the gut part of it that I don't think they factor in.
Yeah, we had Rob Reiner here on the Rich Eisen Show. We had A.J. Hinch on yesterday's program, and I asked him about that Game 2 in the ALCS, why he kept Verlander in against the Yankees 100, 110, 120 pitches. It's so rare that we see, you know, you had mentioned Koufax. I threw out the name Jack Morris, like that sort of Jack Morris type performance, right?
Detroit,
right. Just that guy who's just, or the Twins, he's just never going to come out of a big World Series game or the ALCS. And he said that you do have to just find a difference between the gut and knowing what they can do and looking at your binder and
absolutely.
Your
you got to find the balance, because there is a thing called a gamer. And I know Kershaw struggled, you know, in some of the championship series. The 7th inning was the big bugaboo inning and all that stuff.
Right.
But I got to say, the guy is a gamer, and he's a tougher competitor than anybody on that team. I would go with him, always go with him.
So now
I got mad at Dusty Baker for not putting in Rob Nen for 2 innings in the game against the Angels. I mean, you got to go with the guy that's going to get you that thing. And you got to ask a guy to get 6 outs. He'll get you 6 outs.
Right, 2002 World Series is what you're referring to right there.
Yeah.
This is so you're a diehard.
I like baseball. I love baseball.
What about football? What about the NFL?
I like football, except I don't like that the head injuries I worry about. That's what I worry about. I mean, I'm a big New York Giants fan, and now I got to be I guess I'm an LA Rams fan.
Well, I mean,
I was an LA Rams fan when they were here the first time, with
so
Deacon Jones and, and
Jack
we had
Youngblood,
Jack
Rosie
Youngblood,
Greer.
Rosie Greer we had, and all that great team. And I had season tickets then, but then they went away. And
so when you, I guess let's just start unpacking again the pop culture part of this conversation. So when you're shooting All in the Family, you've got season tickets.
I'm going to see the Rams. Yeah, Roman Gabriel, and they had
Okay. And growing up here,
well, that was when I was a teenager and older. But growing up as a kid, I was a New York Giant fan.
Okay,
I loved, here's how funny. I went to school with Kyle Rote's son.
So Kyle Rote Jr. you went to school with?
Yeah, I was in school with him. And so I asked him, I said, who's your favorite football player? He said, my Uncle Tobin. Because Tobin Rote was a quarterback,
Sure.
And Kyle was a receiver and a halfback. But I love Kyle Rote. I loved Y.A. Tittle and John. All the great players.
Sure, he just
we had
passed away.
Rosie Brown too and Rosie Greer. We had the 2 Rosies on our team.
Have you ever cast an athlete that's a great actor in any of your films?
I'm gonna have to think about that. I'm sure I have.
Just nothing off the top of your head.
I can't think off the top of my head.
How about Andre the Giant?
Well, there you go.
How about him? What was that like?
Andre was the coolest guy, man. I mean, he was the sweetest guy in the world. I mean, literally the cliched gentle giant. I mean, he was that guy and very smart. He told me that he grew up in a town in France where Samuel Beckett was in that town. He used to walk to school. The guy who wrote Waiting for Godot and Andre the Giant walking to school together. He took him to school.
So was there any doubt that when you're looking for that character in Princess Bride that Andre the Giant was the guy?
Well, Bill Goldman said, you got to cast Andre. He said, you got to be, first of all, it's not like you throw a stick and you hit 50 giants. I mean, you got to, it's not a heck of a lot to choose. But he said, Andre, I said, geez, he'd be great. Obviously Andre. Right. And we had to find him because he's, traveling all over the world. We're calling Vince McMahon, trying to get, and finally we just come back from scouting the Cliffs of Insanity, in Ireland, the Cliffs of Moher. We come back to the hotel and they said, you can meet Andre in Paris tomorrow. We go right back to the airport. We fly to Paris. We stay at this hotel, and then we, mess around for the day. I go back to the hotel, and the guy at the desk says, "There's a man waiting for you at the bar." We walk into the bar, and there's a landmass sitting on a bar stool, and it was Andre.
And the rest was history.
Yeah. He auditioned for me, and I didn't understand a word. I didn't understand a word he said. It was a 3-page scene, and I didn't understand it. And I said, Andre, this is like a big part. You're going to be like here for like 15 weeks. He says, I do it, boss. I do it. I go, you do it. I mean, but I don't know. So I made a tape, and I sent him the tape, and he listened to the tape, and he did it. I mean, I didn't have to loop it or anything.
Oh man. Well, when we come back, I want to ask you our poll question, which we've been asking for the 3 hours of this show. Favorite Rob Reiner film.
Okay.
Of which, obviously, Princess Bride is one, and we'll talk LBJ and some more.
Okay.
That's next in 60 seconds. More with Rob Reiner, at Rob Reiner on Twitter, here on The Rich Eisen Show. We're back in 60 seconds. Welcome back to The Rich Eisen Show. LBJ in theaters near you, starring Woody Harrelson as LBJ. Rob Reiner directed that film. Here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's get into that film right now.
Okay.
Why LBJ? Why now? Why'd you get involved?
It's a great question because I was of draft age, during the Vietnam War. So I hated him. I mean, he was my enemy. I was against the war and he could send me to my death. So I was against him. But I've spent a lot of time in politics as I grew up, and I worked on public policy. I actually had a job here in California, California government for 7 years, and I got to understand what he was able to accomplish on a domestic level. Second to FDR, probably no president has had the greater accomplishments than LBJ. And I thought this is really a tale of two presidencies. You know, except for the Vietnam War, he would have gone down as one of the great American presidents of all time. But you can't separate it. He had the Vietnam War. So I wanted to know, who is this guy? Who is he? And that's why I made the film. I wanted to get into his personality.
And how did Woody Harrelson come across?
Well, it's amazing because when people ask me, you know, who plays LBJ? I say, Woody Harrelson. They say, get out of here. No. He came. I said, wait till you see it. Wait till you see what he does in this film. And I picked him because not only is he from Texas and, you know, he has a good sense of humor, which LBJ did. He also has the humanity that I wanted to get across. That you think of LBJ as like an arm-twisting bull in the china shop. You'll, you know, do whatever he takes to get you to, you know, do his will. But he also had a very, very insecure, sensitive side that I discovered in reading a book by Doris Kearns Goodwin. So I wanted to get that in there, and Woody brings all that to it.
So what, my gosh, I'll just ask you a macro question about.
You could ask anything you want. It's your show, Rich.
I know, thanks, Rob. Because we talked about, you know, Dave Roberts and managing and having to go with your gut and also knowing what you like. And is there a similarity to directing with all the different types of personalities that you have?
Yes, there are a lot of different personalities. And the one thing that you have to do in any kind of managerial position is you have a lot of people. They all have different skills, and you want to encourage them to do as good as they can, to be perfect. But know full well that if they're doing perfectly what they're supposed to do, it's knocking somebody else out of whack. And they need to work all together. So you get them to strive for perfection and accept, you know, something less that they can be okay with, and that way everything gels together. So if you have one ego sticking out too hard, it doesn't serve the overall. And it's like that with a film, with a team, or anything like that.
Or a TV show as well, obviously.
Yeah.
Ask Rob Reiner our poll question for the day that we've been asking on our app, Apple App Store, and Google Play, and the link at the top of our Twitter handle at Rich Eisen Show.
Okay, guys, what's your favorite Rob Reiner movie? Spinal Tap, Stand By Me, The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, A Few Good Men.
Which one would you choose?
Those are the choices you have?
Those are the choices.
Now, have you been polling people already?
You want to give
We
them?
have. So The Princess Bride is currently at 38%.
Right.
Late surge by A Few Good Men to 31%.
Right.
Stand By Me, 15. Spinal Tap, 9. When Harry Met Sally, 8.
Okay, interesting. Well, you know, like you love all your children.
Of course.
So no matter what they are, you love them equally.
That's not true.
It isn't true.
He doesn't
Why?
have
Do you have children?
He
that
does not. He's
you don't have
but
any children?
No, but I'll tell you what. I have like baseball gloves and shoes, and like I have favorite pairs of those. Why wouldn't it be the same for kids?
Well, you make a great point.
Maybe one of your kids is a giant screw up, and you don't like him as much as the one that's most successful.
Well, you make a great point. I mean, it shows a real understanding of the human condition.
That's my role on this show.
He's hollow inside.
That's my role here.
Yeah.
So,
for me, and it's not necessarily what I think is the best of all the films, but for me, the one that means the most is Stand By Me, because it was the first time I made a movie that I felt reflected my personality, my sensibility.
So what was that about?
Well, it's a mixture of there's humor and there's some melancholy to it. And it was, I was 12 years old in 1959, which is when we set it. And so I have a feeling and a connection to it and what the little boy, Gordy, is going through in the film.
Did you have, was Stephen King involved very much?
He wasn't involved, although I got to say one of the great experiences I ever had was first showing the film to him. And we showed it to him privately. I was there, and three of the other producers, we were all there. And I was so nervous because he's watching this film, and I knew it was a personal story for him because he actually lived that. I mean, he went with his three buddies to see this dead body, and actually the three buddies that he was with, they all passed away. In the book, that's what happens in the book, and in real life. And in the film, we only had the one die because I didn't feel it was believable to have everybody die. Anyway, he watches the film, and we finished, and then he says, "I just want to think about this for a little bit. I'll come back in about 15 minutes. I'm thinking, oh God, I hope he likes this. He comes back and he says, well, I just have to tell you, this is the best adaptation of anything I've ever written. He says, that's not saying much, but no, he made a joke, but he said I love this film so much. And he said, and in the book, it's Chris picks up the gun to fend off the older boys, and we had Gordy do it. And he says, when you had Gordy pick up that gun, I thought, why didn't I think of that?
No kidding.
Yeah, and so that was the coolest. And then we got to make 6 or 7 other Stephen King movies because he then would give us. We optioned his books for $1. He said, I trust that you'll be able to, do.
So
okay.
which one are you most proud of on that? Misery?
Well, Misery, we did Shawshank Redemption, which to me was.
How did that not get on?
Well, I didn't. Our company
direct it.
produced it. I didn't direct it. I didn't
Rob
direct
Reiner
it.
directed film.
No, but our company produced it, and we did Dolores Claiborne and Needful Things. But the point is, we had a good relationship with Stephen King.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, for him to say that, I mean, The Shining was out. Carrie had been out
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah, it was really, really cool.
Rob Reiner here on the Rich Eisen Show, and A Few Good Men, casting Jack Nicholson in that role, and watching him do his thing. We've had Kevin Bacon, Noah Wiley on this show talk about that the big scene, obviously.
Yes, you can't handle the truth,
right?
Yeah.
And we've heard it from their perspective of watching an actor. You're an actor and director.
Right.
What was that like from your perspective?
Well, it was interesting because. We have a big courtroom, and Jack has this long monologue. And I said to him before, I said, "Look, I'll give you a choice. Either I can shoot if you want to shoot. Ready now? I'll shoot you right now. If you want some time to work on it, rehearse it, I will shoot all the reaction shots first, and then we turn the camera around on you, and whatever." He said, "Why don't you?" shoot the reaction shots, and that will give me it. So, I got Tom Cruise cut away, Demi Moore, Kevin Bacon, I got Kevin Pollak. I mean, the judge, the jury. I'm doing all the reaction shots, and every time he's off camera, he gives exactly the same performance that you see that's on camera. After 2 or 3, I go up to him and I said, "Jack, maybe you want to save a little because, I mean, he's full out in every one and he's off camera." And he says, "Rob, you don't understand. I love to act." He says, "I don't get that much of a chance to do a great part." And then we turned the camera around on him and it was the same.
Nailed it each time.
Every time.
Where did Spinal Tap come from?
That came from. I produced and acted and wrote it with my buddies Chris Guest and Harry Shearer and we wrote a TV show which was a satire of different things on television. It's called TV Show. We did sitcoms, we did telethons, we did commercials, we did everything. And it was a guy flipping around from one little thing to the other. Mm-hmm. One of the things we did at Takeoff was a thing called it was Midnight Special. It was a late night rock and roll show, which was a real thing. And was the first time we had I played Wolfman Jack, who hosted the show. I said, "Baby, to hit a Wolfman." I did that guy. And I introduced Spinal Tap. We're England's loudest band. And we had Spinal Tap on for the first time. And they did it, and we did a thing called Rock and Roll Nightmare, and they started improvising in the characters. And then time went by, and we said, "Wait a minute, we can do something more with these characters." So we came back together and started working on it.
How much of it was ad-libbed?
It's all the whole thing is improvised. There's only one speech that was actually written. Patrick McNee, who says "Tap into America," he wasn't an improvisational actor, so we wrote a little speech for him. But the rest of the thing was completely improvised.
Going to 11, turning it to
everything. And my favorite thing about that is Elon Musk, who created the Tesla, Yeah. When he first had the Tesla, he came to there was a party, and I said, "What's this car?" He says, "This is a new car that I'm going to start putting out there called the Tesla." I said, "Wow, it's a really cool car." He says, "Let me show you something." He sits me down in a passenger seat and he says, "Look at the volume." And the volume went up to 11. He says, "I love the movie. I put the volume," and the air conditioning goes up to 11 too on a Tesla. If you look at the Tesla, that's what happened. So that was a big kick.
So when you did the line, did you do the line and then create something to match the number 11?
Yeah. Well, we knew we were going to make amps that go up to 11. And he said that, and I said, "Well, why don't you make 10 the top?" I mean, we just improvising.
That's the last thing for you, too. I could talk to you all day, Rob. Rob Reiner here on the show. What was it like growing up around Mel Brooks?
Well, it's a lot funnier than growing up around Artie Rabin. There was funniness in my house. I mean, Mel and my father and Sid Caesar and Aaron Rubin and Norman Lear. I mean, they were the funniest.
Seriously, like you would just.
There were funny people in the house, yes. But you think it's normal because you don't know. You're a kid. You figure that's what it is. And then when I went over to my friend Mike Leeds' house, I realized not so funny over here. Not as funny as over there.
Unbelievable. I mean, I could just pick your brain, and we didn't even obviously talk about All in the Family, but hopefully.
But then if you keep picking, I don't have much left.
That's true.
I need it for other things.
Understood.
Yeah.
For your next film.
Yeah.
LBJ, check it out in theaters near you. Rob Reiner directed, Woody Harrelson starring in it. Richard Jenkins, who I love also. He's terrific.
He's great.
He was great in 6 Feet Under.
He's a great what I call an unsweaty actor.
Okay.
He's one of these guys that doesn't push anything. Everything's real, and it's just so natural.
Awesome. Congrats on LBJ, and
Thank you.
come back anytime, Rob.
All right. Thanks for having me,
You got
Rich.
it at Rob Reiner on Twitter.
For more Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Rich Eisen Show app.